song of the green rainbow. A green rainbow was moving toward me. So here I was dancing under the rainbow and making the rain wet the whole earth.
Good morning and welcome to the National Congress of American Indians 2026 State of Indian Nations. Please take your seats. Our session will begin in 5 minutes. Once again, if you could please take your seats, our session will begin in 5 minutes. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Please give us a warm welcome to the Young Blood Singers, the oldest continuously singing drum group in the Northeast, and Native American Women Warriors Color Guard. Now you can stand. Please be seated. Yes, Wiblahan, thank you to our singers and to our honor guard. Aho, udashidade. Good morning again, everyone, and thank you for joining us here today at the National Congress of American Indians 2026 State of the Indian Nations Address. It is truly an honor to be here with each and every one of you, tribal and youth leaders, federal and state allies, organizational partners, advocates for Indian country, and we're live streaming this event, and so all of those at home that are watching, welcome. Before we proceed with today's speakers, I would like to call on Councilman and former Governor of the Taos Pueblo, Mr. Gary Lujan, to the stage for our invocation.
With due respects, I ask for permission, the people of this eastern homeland, the elders in our room, and the elders throughout this great nation of ours. Dahunanam kitamawame akhuyat aina yante tum halumba kiwisu winba kimata kalhu Yonahikina tsaihi peli ik uhi yante ina himea e haba yonahikina pia tsawa e guhi ina utu ya e kim dai pia kuga yonahikim dai hipeli ik uhi ipika maki haba yuna upia han pia guhi ipihoya e yante tomo wame akhuyat aina echo tuwa e tu ina kiumala hu ipi amma e Kim dai pia wan na e haba yunam tsi ipun ki khuli ame e on you lai pa me e ku hi on khani pia wan na e yona hikina ka kom wa e yona hikina dai pa wa e ku hi na ka ma e na I mau me e pia tele e kim wa e ku he wa na ki wa e haba bol na noi inai pi amma ka yona hi ku hi Water itayaki, Tamawame, where I know Mapimala, who yantayuna to na tuya itaina, guhi, to na imuya ib, or them in white amaga, the one I wake at time amaga, guhi, yana, wa on a daily imuya e humana ipi amaga. About in a hall maga, to I want bigger, about unum him hulia me who wait or one in a power e, yonihi, kino, Iwa, or we do one bar. Kina kipelm, kina maua maguhi, huta tenna mea, yati na guti mak mapimalo, hu yoga. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Lujan, for helping us begin today's event in a good way. As we begin this session, we gather united in our commitment to protecting tribal sovereignty, strengthening our nations, and advancing the well-being of our citizens. Grounded in our inherent rights and collective leadership, this work continues to shape a stronger future for our tribal nations. Now I am honored to invite our NCAI Youth Commission co-presidents, Angela Cerna and Jonas Ganusa, to the stage to deliver their address. Let's welcome these two amazing young leaders.
Segu Sogwe, Jonas Ganusa Nugets, Turma Nogale, Onio Teaga, Oskale Wage, Niwagi Dolora. Good morning, elders, tribal leaders, and relatives. My name is Jonas Ganusa, and I come from the Turma Band of Chippewa Indians in Oneida Nation, Wisconsin. I'm currently attending ASU to obtain a Master of Legal Studies and will be graduating this spring. I am honored to stand before you today. I am honored to stand before you today as the co-president of the National Congress of American Indians Youth Commission, a role that allows me to advocate for Native youth across North America.
Minogajeb Induamaganadok, Nigaj Baneshi, Birudan Indigenous cause, Mekana Kwajo, Nanawag Minua, Onayotea, Kandunjba, Shikendodem, Ojibwe Natakwe, and Dao. Good morning to all of my relatives. My given name is Gentle Callingbird, and my English name is Angelina Cerna. I am Turtle Clan. I come from the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa Indians and the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin. In the fall, I'll be a senior at Cornell University, majoring in anthropology with a double minor in American Indian and Indigenous Studies and Inequality Studies. And I proudly serve as one of the 2 co-presidents for the National Congress of American Indians Youth Commission.
We are proud to be here today with the responsibility and opportunity to speak in a room full of advocates and allies who have dedicated their lives to protecting our tribal nations is both humbling and motivating. The people in this room have spent decades protecting our nations, fighting for our treaty rights, defending our lands, and ensuring that our people have what they need to thrive. Your work has laid the foundation for everything we have today and for everything we will build tomorrow. However, we must not neglect the significant challenges facing that crucial work today. We gather here during a time when tribal sovereignty requires our constant vigilance. The federal government continues to fall short on its trust and treaty obligations. Our people continue to be subject to arbitrary and irresponsible barriers to crucial resources. We face cuts to education, threats to our land and water rights, underrepresentation in decisions that shape the future of our nation. These are not new struggles, but as they persist, they demand continuous attention and action. The federal government has a legal and moral obligation to provide educational resources to the youth. This sacred responsibility has been enshrined in our treaties and upheld in courts across tribal nations and the United States. And yet, tribal colleges and universities continue to experience reductions in staffing and resources that directly harm our Native students. These cuts have hindered essential resources for Native youth, including mentors, mental health services, and financial support. These are not just handouts, they are not just numbers on a budget sheet. They are legally mandated infrastructure to secure the well-being of our communities. Behind every position eliminated is a person who dedicated their career to lifting up our young people, and every resource cut is a student's path to success that becomes that much harder. Our students deserve better than broken promises. That is why the NCI Youth Commission will not sit by and why we are taking action. The 2025 mid-year resolution titled Upholding Trust and Treaty Obligations for Higher Education Access was passed this year. This crucial legislation declares our opposition to harmful cuts to Pell Grant funding and eligibility and reaffirms our commitment to supporting higher education for Native students. The message of this resolution echoes in our continued fight. Education is not a privilege. It is a right safeguarded by the law. Native youth are stepping into leadership roles earlier than ever before. Across Indian country, young people are creating their own pathways to success to leadership. They are serving on community boards, organizing grassroots movements, and making their voices heard within their nations. They are ensuring that our words, our stories, and our ways of knowing will not be lost. Native youth are pursuing higher education, returning home to serve their communities, and using their skills to address their unique challenges that our nations face. They are not waiting for permission to lead, they are already leading. This year, the NCI Youth Commission has identified 3 priority initiatives that reflect the needs and voices of Native youth. This includes financial literacy, land and water protection, community and relationship building. These priorities will guide the Youth Commission's work as we continue to advocate for the next generation. But our youth cannot do this work alone. We need the strength and wisdom of our communities to guide us through. There is no tribal sovereignty without Native youth. If we do not create pathways for our young people to lead, who will defend our land, our waters, and our way in life to years to come? Sovereignty is not just a political status, it is a living practice. It must be exercised, protected, and passed on from one generation to the next. So I ask each of you to advocate for full funding of our trust and treaty obligations to every level of the government. Continue and invest in youth programs within your nation. Include young people in your councils, committees, and decision-making processes, and continue to mentor the next generation leaders and trust them with real responsibility. The work that you have done has brought us this far. Now help us carry it forward. I also want to speak on something that has weighed heavily on many of our Native youth. Recent immigration enforcement actions on college campuses have created fear and uncertainty among students across the United States. Indigenous peoples have lived on these lands since time immemorial, and yet many Native students have faced questioning, harassment, and even detention simply because of how they look. No student should have to carry their tribal enrollment card and passport out of fear. No student should have to worry about being stopped on their way to class. Our Native youth go to college to learn, to grow, and to bring back knowledge back to their communities, not to be treated as suspects in their own homelands. We stand in solidarity with all students who are living in fear, and we call on institutions and policymakers to ensure that campuses remain safe spaces for learning and community, not sites of intimidation. I would like to close with gratitude to the elders who paved the way, to the leaders who continue the fight, and to the Native youth who inspire me every day. Our nations have survived centuries of challenges to our existence. We are still here, our languages are still spoken, our traditions are still practiced, our communities are still strong, and our young people are ready to lead. Yawanko, Swagwegu, Ogale, Swanadisio. Thank you.
Thank you, Co-President, for grounding us in the importance of education, mentorship, and the systems that shape the future of our nations. As we continue this conversation, I want to speak to how we lead, not just the policies we advance, but the values and responsibilities that guide us as we move forward together. In our cultures, leadership has never been about standing above others. It has always been standing with them. Many of our nations teach us that no one person is greater than another, and that leadership is rooted in humility, balance, and responsibility. Among the Haudenosaunee, the great law of peace reminds us that leadership must be guided by peace, equity, and a responsibility to future generations. Among the Anishinaabe, the 7 grandfather teachings guide us, and one of the most powerful is humility. Humility teaches us that our titles do not define who we are. Our actions do. The way we show up for our nations, our communities, and one another matters far more than any position we hold. The Creator made us all equal, and we should never forget that. None of us are perfect, and if we were, there would be no space left to learn, to grow, or to become better sisters, brothers, and relatives for our people. Our teachings remind us that leadership requires us to be both teachers and learners. That is where growth happens, and where open-minded leadership begins. There is so much each of us can learn from one another, and in order to acquire that understanding, we must be eager to listen. My grandmother used to tell me, "Leave a place better than you found it." That teaching grounds me today. It reminds me that leadership is not about personal legacy, but about collective responsibility. I encourage everyone in this room to reconnect with the teachings that guide you, because our values should always shape the way we lead. Those same teachings remind us of the importance of culture and language in everything we do. Culture is not something we visit when it's convenient. It is something we carry into every room, every policy discussion, and every decision we make. When we integrate language, ceremony, and cultural values into governance, we keep the Creator, our ancestors, and our responsibilities at the center of our work. So I ask us to pause for a moment. Take a look around this room. Notice how many youth you see here today. That number matters. If Native youth are the future of Indian country, then the future cannot be built without inclusion and consideration of youth in leadership spaces. Youth deserve to be in these rooms. Youth deserve to be present on the Hill, advocating for our nations, learning how decisions are made, and shaping the futures they will inherit. Too often, Native youth are invited merely into spaces symbolically, asked to sit at tables without being trusted with meaningful responsibility. We must move beyond tokenism. We must stop using youth and start working with them. We must stop silencing young voices and instead uplift them. Youth bring lived experience, creativity, and new perspectives to governance. We cannot expect young people to lead if we never allow them to learn. I encourage tribal leaders to bring youth into these spaces not as a gesture, but as an investment through mentorship, guidance, and opportunities to engage meaningfully in leadership. We must also acknowledge the moment we are living in. We are living in a time of uncertainty, politically, socially, and spiritually. Across Indian country and the land cared for by their ancestors for millennia, many of our people are moving through fear, wondering if they are safe, if they will be questioned, and if their identities will be respected. Let me be clear. Our people are citizens of sovereign tribal nation. That is not a political statement. It is a legal and historical truth. In moments like this, leadership is not about reaction or rhetoric. It is about care, clarity, and protection of our people, especially our youth. From a youth perspective, the impact of fear and uncertainty is already real. People across the United States are afraid to leave their homes. Cultural programs and community gatherings are being canceled. Safe spaces for learning, healing, and connection are disappearing because families are worried about their safety and well-being. No one should have to decide between their education, their culture, and their sense of safety. No family should have to live in fear simply for existing. This is not about politics. This is about the well-being of our people, of all people. This is about dignity. This is about protection, and this is about leadership that chooses care over silence. This moment is especially critical when we consider the challenges our communities are facing right now. Across the country, federal funding that supports mental health, substance use treatment, and community-based healing programs have been reduced or eliminated. When funding disappears, the impact is not abstract. It means fewer counselors, fewer culturally grounded programs, and fewer resources for young people who are already caring more than they should. That reality underscores why youth leadership must be trusted and resourced, not symbolic. That is why I want to highlight an important resolution written by the NCI Youth Commission and passed at the 2025 NCI Annual Convention in Seattle, Healing the Next Generation, Native Youth Leading the Fight Against Substance Abuse. This resolution was grounded in vulnerable, crucial conversations about what we are seeing in our communities, our families, and sometimes within ourselves. We did not write it because it sounded good on paper. We wrote it because substance abuse is something our generation is carrying, and too often we are expected to survive it without being included in the solutions. This resolution calls for sustained investment in youth-led, culturally grounded prevention, treatment, and recovery initiatives that reflect who we are as Indigenous people. As we head to the Hill, we are carrying this resolution with us and advocating for trust and tribal and youth leadership and for policies that meet Native youth where they are. This work is not theoretical. Over the past year, the NCI Youth Commission has moved beyond planning and into action. We are creating spaces where Native youth can learn how policy works, engage in civic life, and build a confidence to lead. Through workshops, educational resources, talking circles, and direct conversations with leaders at every level, youth are gaining tools to protect sovereignty and shape decisions that affect our daily lives. One of those tools is the reclamation of Indigenous languages, which bring life to these actions. They remind us that everything around us is living and that our words, our decisions, and our policies carry spirit. Speaking our languages helps the Creator understand us. It helps our ancestors hear us, and it keeps our nations alive in ways no policy alone ever could. We can look to our relatives across the border for inspiration. When Anishinaabe Member of Parliament Sol Mamakwa spoke Ojibwe on the floor of Canadian Parliament, it was more than a historic moment. It was an assertion of sovereignty. In Canada, many treaties and policies are written and spoken in Indigenous languages. That practice integrates culture into governance and affirms Indigenous presence and authority in decision-making spaces. Here in the United States, we have many policies written about our cultures and languages, but none written in our traditional languages at the federal level. Language is legacy, it is value, it is connection. I believe that is something we should begin to explore. It is never too late to learn your language, reclaim your teachings, or reconnect with where you come from. Our ancestors fought too hard for us to turn away from who we are. That is why we are prioritizing in language and culture initiatives that support youth in reconnecting with their identities, learning from elders, and understanding the deep connection between culture, sovereignty, and policy. Going beyond familiar lands and borders, Native youth are learning from Indigenous leaders across the globe and bringing those lessons home to strengthen our nations through international engagement at the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. Much closer to home, there is one leader who has inspired much of our work. I want to take a moment to honor the late Chairman Ernie Stevens Jr., a leader whose legacy continues to shape this movement and this organization. Chairman Stevens was fundamental in helping establish the NCI Youth Commission. He believed deeply in Native youth leadership, not as a future concept, but as a present responsibility. He was always ready to support young people in Indian country, always willing to listen, and always willing to open doors so youth could walk through them. At the 2025 NCI Annual Convention, the Youth Commission renamed our Youth Warrior Award in his honor. We did this not only to recognize his leadership, but to ensure that future generations of youth leaders will know his name, his impact, and his commitment to Indigenous youth. His loss has affected us deeply, but his legacy will live on through the NCI Youth Commission and through every youth leader who steps forward, knowing that they belong in these spaces because Chairman Stephen believed in us. We carry his vision forward by continuing to invest in youth, protect their voices, and create pathways for them to lead. This work will continue and it will grow. We invite tribal leaders, organizations, and partners to bring us into your spaces, not only so we can share what we are learning, but so we can continue learning alongside you. Leadership is strongest when it is shared and rooted in trust. As I close, I want to leave us with this. Our ancestors survived so that we could stand here today. They carried teachings, languages, and responsibilities forward, even when the world told them we would disappear. Our youth are watching to see what kind of future we will build, and every leader in this room will help decide whether that future is shaped by fear or by courage. If we lead with humility, remain both teachers and learners, and make space for the next generation to lead alongside us, we will leave more than policies behind. We will leave strong nations, living cultures, and a future worthy of those who came before us and those yet to come. That is how we leave a place better than we found it. Jimmy Gwetch, thank you.
I'm glad I'm not speaking next. So, as many of you know, this week I typically celebrate my birthday while we're here at ECWS, and I came into this week very thankful and excited about the fact that in my tribe I will be officially considered an elder. I'm more excited about that means I get to go to lunch first, and I get my elder's check. But after that, I'm also excited about our future. So let's give them another round of applause. So thank you again, Co-Presidents Serna and Ganusa, for your dedication not only to your peers, but to the well-being of Indian country at large. It is truly inspiring to hear how our youth have been so active and hold such high aspirations for themselves and their communities. Now it's my honor to call upon the President of the National Congress of American Indians and Chairman of the Pechanga Band of Indians, Mr. Mark Macaro, to deliver his State of the Indian Nations address.
Meyuyam, Palovamu Echnai, Lavaka Piva Atwat Iva Upom Ash. My relatives, honorable leaders, members of Congress, administration officials, and allies, I greet you with respect, humility, and gratitude. My name is Mark Macaro, and I have the honor of serving as the President of the National Congress of American Indians. I'm also the Chairman of the Pechanga Band of Indians, Payom Kowachum. This State of Indian Nations is more than a speech. It is Indian country's unified, formal message grounded in our inherent sovereignty and our government-to-government relationship with the United States. Today, we gather not just as representatives of our individual nations, but as relatives bound by shared history, shared responsibility, and shared destiny. We gather as tribal governments and as peoples, carrying obligations to those who came before us and those not yet born. We gather at a moment of profound risk, yet in every challenge, there's also opportunity. And we gather with a unifying purpose: to build a strong and sustained tribal movement to protect the sovereignty of our nations, not for symbolism, not for performative meetings, but for results. Results for our citizens, our ceremonies, our lands, our waters, and for our children. Long before there was a United States, there were sovereign tribal nations, governments with laws, languages, economies, and lands shaped by the tens of thousands of years on this continent. Our sovereignty was not created by treaties, nor granted by Congress. It is inherent and existed before colonization. Treaties did not give us sovereignty, they recognized it. The Constitution did not define us, it acknowledged us. Federal laws did not create our rights, it memorialized them. And yet, for centuries, our sovereignty has been attacked, and attempts continue to constrain and diminish it. Yet our nations continue to govern, continue to lead, to teach, to resist, and to rise. We've endured removals, allotments, termination, policies built to erase us, and yet we're still here, still governing, still building, still rising. The fundamental truth that binds all tribal nations together is that we are sovereign. We always were, we always will be. Now, the United States is strongest when it honors that truth, not when it tests it. This moment, right now, echoes another pivotal moment in the history of Indian country, and that is the Indian civil rights movement of the 1970s, catalyzed by the American Indian movement, a time when Native activists occupied Alcatraz and Wounded Knee, when fishing rights families stood in the rivers to defend what treaties promised, when grassroots leaders demanded tribal control over education, healthcare, and child welfare, where everyday Native citizens, grandmas, students, veterans' families refused to disappear and just go away. That movement changed federal law, it reshaped the public consciousness, and ignited this modern era of tribal self-determination. That victory did not come from Washington. It came from the people. Today's movement is key to understanding what happens next. Without a plan, tribes will go from one crisis to the next crisis. Just look at the last 12 months. Like a GPS destination, if we know where we're going, getting sidetracked due to political skullduggery won't be fatal, because we know our path forward. For example, the recent remarks about tribes by Oklahoma Governor Stitt are appalling. And that level of willful ignorance runs deep throughout America. If we don't have a plan for educating America, these ignorant pronouncements become truths. The sovereignty movement must be a people-powered movement rooted in the same spirit that carried us through the 1970s. And here in 2026, that spirit must show up as organized civic power locally, regionally, and nationally. Sovereignty is not defended once. It is defended every year, every budget cycle, every court term, and every legislative session, every time a state tests boundaries on our jurisdictions, not just by chairpersons and presidents, not just by attorneys and advocates, but by citizens, those who vote, who teach, who speak their language, who practice their culture, who defend their treaty rights, and who hold governments accountable. Now, for too long, Indian country has been forced to fight over scraps, to operate within systems that treat federal and treaty obligations as optional or negotiable, as if the resources promised to Native Americans were charity instead of payment for land and peace and partnership. For Congress to fulfill the United States Trust responsibility to Indian country, the entire tribal budget must be funded, an annual non-competitive based budget, or give our stolen lands back. Let's state this truth clearly. There is enough. There has always been enough. The only scarcity is political will. The trust responsibility is not discretionary. Treaty obligations are not optional. Native lives cannot be balanced against other priorities like an afterthought. The United States is fully capable of meeting its legal and moral obligations to tribal nations. Full funding for Indian health care, education, housing, infrastructure, law enforcement, and disaster relief is not a gift. It is the fulfillment of solemn agreements embedded in the founding of this country. That means that funding must be reliable, forward-looking, and protected from disruption. So our clinics stay open, our schools stay stable, our law enforcement stays staffed, and our programs are not whiplashed by uncertainty. And honoring these obligations is not only good for Indian country, it strengthens the United States itself. Indeed, as Indian country goes, so goes America. So, my message today is both moral and practical. Honor the treaties, respect sovereignty, and invest in what works, tribal self-determination. Now, sovereignty is strongest when we stand together. No nation stands alone. No court case is isolated. No attack on tribal authority is limited to one region. When one nation's rights are threatened, all nations must stand together. All nations must stand with them. So when a state challenges tribal jurisdiction, we will respond collectively. When federal agencies ignore consultation, our united voice must be unmistakable. And when policies are developed without tribes at the table from the beginning, outcomes are predictable: inefficiency, conflict, litigation, and harm. Consultation done early is not just respectful, it saves time, it saves money, and it builds trust. Unity does not erase our differences, it allows our differences to strengthen us. And make no mistake, we stand in unity with all of our relatives in Minnesota. To Congress, the administration, and allies, we did not arrive at this moment alone. Stand with us, not in words, but in action. Your partnership strengthens both us and the country as a whole. In recent years, Indian country has benefited from federal leadership, true allies who've consistently championed and defended tribal sovereignty and self-governance. The late Senator Ben Nighthorse Campbell and the late Representative Raul Grijalva exemplify this. And we need your advocacy in every committee that touches our lives: appropriations, judiciary, natural resources, education, health, commerce, and homeland security. Because sovereignty is impacted everywhere federal decisions are made. And that is the work of this movement through the next 25 years. My relatives, if we're to build a movement that matches the magnitude of our responsibilities, we need an anchor at a home where unity, strategy, and purpose all come together. Well, that place is with the National Congress of American Indians. For more than 80 years, NCAI has been the unifying voice of tribal nations. And today, as sovereignty faces both new threats and historic opportunities, NCAI must once again serve as the movement's strategic center. It is the builder, it is the protector, and it is the amplifier. NCAI is where tribal nations translate shared values into shared action, across regions, across party lines, and across issues. Anywhere sovereignty is challenged, NCAI brings tribes together, coordinating rapid responses, developing shared messages, and ensuring Indian country speaks as one. In unity is power, and NCAI is your voice. This sovereignty movement cannot rest solely on the shoulders of its leaders. It must come from the people, the heart of this movement. NCAI helps tribes engage voters, train local advocates, build civic power, so every tribal citizen has a voice. Through fellowships, youth councils, internships, and leadership academies, NCAI prepares the next generation to carry the movement forward, just as young activists did in the 1970s civil rights era. Our youth are not merely the leaders of tomorrow, they are leading with us right now, and you saw that in these first two speeches today. They are revitalizing languages. They're advocating for climate action, organizing in their communities, and harnessing the power of social media unlike any other generation. Just as the young people of the 1970s filled the movement with courage and clarity, today's youth carry the next era of sovereignty. Our responsibility is to support them with resources, with mentorship, and with our trust. Finally, NCAI shapes the national narrative on all things tribal, ensuring that treaties are understood, sovereignty is respected, and the trust responsibility is recognized as fundamental to the American system of government. In this movement, NCAI is not simply an institution, it is a leader, a protector, and a holder of the vision. So today, I call on all tribal nations, all citizens, all youth, all elders, all allies, and all leaders to stand together. Demand full funding of the trust and treaty obligations, not someday, but now. Flex our sovereignty with our governments, courts, lands, and communities. Engage citizens and grow the political power of every tribal nation. Elections matter. My tribal leaders, lead boldly, govern without apology, and protect your citizens. Stand with other nations and remember who we are. To our tribal citizens and our youth, claim your voice, vote, advocate, hold your leaders responsible. Learn your nation's story and speak the truth of your nation's sovereignty in your communities and schools. This movement is yours. Lead with courage, step forward without fear, and your ideas, bring your energy and your voice, because that's the spark that this movement needs. Your voice is power. Use it. Step up. Speak out. You're changing the world. Now, elders, continue guiding with us. Continue guiding us with wisdom, teachings, and prayers for our armor. Your wisdom is our shield. Your prayers are our strength. Keep reminding us who we are so we never confuse urgency with compromise. Now, let us rise as one people, all nations and all generations, and across every division that others have tried to place between us. Let's build a movement that is bold, relentless, and unstoppable. Let's protect our sovereignty, not just for today, but for all time. Let's be good ancestors so that when our future generations look back on this moment, they'll say, they did not wait, they did not compromise, they rose, they fought, and they spoke. Tribal nations rise. The movement begins and nothing will stop us. We are the first people of this continent. We are sovereign tribal nations and we will never back down. So let's walk forward together in unity, in strength, and abundance, and commit to one another that we will not just survive this moment, we will shape it. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yes, we belong. Thank you, President McCarl, for speaking truth to power and bringing forth these vital issues to set the tone for Indian country in 2026. As Executive Director of NCAI, I look forward to continuing to work together alongside our dedicated staff to ensure our people's voices are not just heard, but they are the foundation for our collective action. Now, we will hear from Congress as Senator Tina Smith from the great state of Minnesota delivers her congressional response. Senator Smith.
Good morning. Good morning. I want to thank first President Maccaro for your wise and unifying words, to Executive Director Larry Wright, and to your incredible youth leaders, Jonas and Angelina. I am United States Senator Tina Smith, and I represent the place that we now call Minnesota. Minnesota Makoche, the land where waters reflect the clouds. I am honored and humbled to be here to offer the congressional response to President Maccaro's State of Indian Nations address. And I am so grateful to NCAI and to your leadership, to the tribal leaders gathered here, and to all American Indian and Alaska Natives who have traveled a great distance to be here in Washington today, especially the elders and the youth leaders, and to all who are here with us in spirit. I also want to say Han and Boju to Minnesota's tribal leaders who are here today, representing Minnesota's 11 sovereign tribal nations. I want to recognize in particular my friend and mentor, Lenny Feinday, who recently left the Tribal Council at Leech Lake to join NCAI as General Counsel. Lenny has been a strong and respected leader in Minnesota and around the country, so thank you, Lenny, for your friendship. In Minnesota, Native people lead, including our remarkable Lieutenant Governor, Peggy Flanagan, who I know is going to be here later today, and Shelley Buck, former leader of the Prairie Island community and newly elected to the Minnesota House of Representatives. So, friends, I want to start by acknowledging the deep challenges and attacks on our democracy we are facing in Minnesota and around the country, especially in the last month. In my home state of Minnesota, federal masked immigration police have been roving our streets, detaining, arresting, assaulting, and even killing our citizens, Alex Preddy and Renee Good. These are people who have done nothing wrong except express their constitutional rights to free speech and assembly. Tragically, this harassment and violence are as old as colonialism to Native people. Over the last weeks, countless Native folks have been stopped and questioned and even detained by immigration enforcement agents. It is cruelly ironic that Native people, the indigenous people of this land, are being accused of illegally immigrating. But what gives me hope? What gives me hope are the incredible people of Minnesota who are showing the rest of the country how to stand against this violence and how to stand strong for our shared humanity. And I see every day powerful Native organizations across the state who know how to mobilize to protect their neighbors. And it is not lost on me that Minneapolis is the birthplace of the American Indian movement, and the relatives of those leaders are organizing to protect us today. I saw this firsthand a couple of weeks ago when I stopped by Powwow Grounds Coffee, which is a coffee shop and community hub in Little Earth. I stopped by to bring donations and to check in with the Native organizers. Powwow Grounds is just down the street from the American Indian Movement building. And shortly before we pulled up, a vehicle full of ICE agents had just driven away from Powwow Grounds, driven away by the indigenous protectors who blew their whistles to sound the alarm. And this is still happening today in Minneapolis and Minnesota. And yet, the mutual aid networks through the Tawahe Foundation and others have sprung to action in support of the community. Leaders like Sean Sherman and Rachel Dion Thunder have organized public advocacy and outcry to demand justice and to tell about the impacts of Operation Metro Surge on small businesses and farmers. I am so proud of Minnesota's response to this crisis and the unity and dignity and strength that we have shown, but it weighs heavily on me how this is re-traumatizing Native people in my state. At the core of this, at the heart of this, we return to core principles and the values and obligations laid out in the Constitution of the United States: freedom for all people and the rule of law. And let me be clear, this U.S. Constitution recognizes, it does not create, it recognizes tribal nations' inherent sovereignty and the rights to govern yourselves. This sovereignty is not created by the United States or our treaties or our Constitution. It is inherent and it is fundamental. And it is the starting place for all of our mutual agreements and treaties and obligations. And it cannot be abrogated by any leader. These core principles, inherent tribal sovereignty, self-determination, and the federal government's trust and treaty obligations, these are at the core of NCAI's purpose as a unifying voice and a strong, effective advocate for American Indians and Alaska Natives and the well-being of your people. Now, in his remarks, President McCarro talked about the challenges facing tribal nations, certainly, and also about the unity that can be found in your shared commitment to defending your inherent sovereignty. You are a movement for change and empowerment, NCAI. And this is so important because even in the face of the chaos and uncertainty and upheaval in Washington over the last year, tribal issues remain a source of common ground. Now, don't get me wrong. This has been an incredibly difficult year. So many of the federal government's commitments to you for government-to-government consultation, grants and agreements to fulfill commitments for your health and your housing and your education, land and water rights, all of this and more has been caught up in a cycle of destructive uncertainty, and this is unacceptable. And yet, tribal sovereignty is not a partisan issue. The coalition of leaders in Washington who understand tribal sovereignty is diverse. It stretches across ideological and political spectrums. These are not Democratic or Republican issues, and yet we also must be honest with ourselves. Both parties have failed historically and to this day to live up to these responsibilities. And still, being an optimist, we can celebrate the successes and the progress that we have made. Between 2021 and 2025, we saw a historic empowerment of Native people to lead federal agencies and departments, including Deb Haaland as Secretary of the Interior. We saw historic investments in Native enterprises and communities, from energy and housing and education. And we brought Leonard Peltier home. When Native people lead, Native people do better. And we need to remain grounded in the vision of what is possible when the federal government truly and finally meets its trust and treaty obligations. A fully funded Indian health service with culturally competent care to keep your members healthier in body and in spirit. Safe, stable, and available housing for everyone in tribal communities. Language revitalization and education about Native histories and cultures for Native students, but for non-Native students as well. Access to Indigenous food, public safety to keep your community safe, and the jurisdiction to enforce your sovereignty on your lands. Economic opportunity and innovation and investment. And to be clear, tribes should not be forced into a competition with one another for scarce resources. It is not an option, this funding. This funding is a manifestation of our promises and obligations. So, yes, there is a lot of work to do, especially to rise above this partisan division that is gripping and ripping our country apart. So, I'd like to close by highlighting something that I feel so strongly about. And I want to say, though I'm retiring from the Senate at the end of this year, I am not done working for you, for my state, for my country. I am so proud of the work that we have done together, and so grateful and humbled by the friendship and the understanding and the wisdom that you have shared with me, starting when I never dreamed that I would be a United States Senator. Some of you may know that I am a senator from Minnesota, but I was born in New Mexico. And as a young girl, I was blessed to grow up surrounded by Pueblo land and food and culture. And when I moved to Minnesota, I was young, I was newly married, and I was just starting out, and I had so much to learn about Minnesota. And as senator in Minnesota, the relationships that I have built with Minnesota's 11 sovereign nations are precious to me. They feel like a sacred trust. And I've probably never been more honored than when Minnesota's tribal leaders traveled to Minnesota for a flag ceremony, giving me permission to display your nation's flags in my office here in Washington, D.C. We have done some great work together. We restored tribal criminal jurisdiction in the Violence Against Women Act so that you can protect your communities. In the wake of the coronavirus pandemic, we delivered the largest infusion of funding to tribal nations in our history because you know best what your tribe needs and how to protect and care for your communities. We secured advanced appropriations for Indian Health Service. Federal government dysfunction and disruption should not interfere with your capacity to take care of your people. We protected native foods like manoman, pusin, wild rice, and invested in language revitalization. And we have seen the federal government come to tribes to manage forests cooperatively using indigenous forestry methods. And we have restored land, including 11,000 acres to the Leech Lake Band, righting historic wrongs. So, on a sunny and unseasonably cool day in July of 2024, I was invited to Leech Lake to commemorate the restoration of these lands to the band. It was a serious and beautiful ceremony and a powerful reminder that it is never too late. It is never too late to right historic wrongs. I have seen so many examples in my time in service of Native power and strength and resilience, whether it is Native entrepreneurs and small businesses, whether it is language immersion schools and childcare facilities where Native kids can learn their languages and connect to their cultures from the very beginning. And I am so grateful to see the record number of Native people elected to state legislators all around the country. And my dream is that someday, before too long, we will see another Native person in the United States Senate. We have so much to do, so much work to do, and in my last year in the Senate, I will work as hard as I can on food sovereignty and the Farm Bill to pass the PROTECT Act and to address the critical housing shortage in Native communities. And I will push relentlessly the federal government to uphold its trust and treaty obligations and to meet those obligations and to honor your sovereignty. This is my constitutional responsibility. And NCAI, I am not done making good trouble. I want to end by thanking you so much for inviting me to speak with you this morning. And I want to close by saying that your presence is so important. Your voices are so powerful, and we need to hear them right now in Washington, D.C., because power comes from the people to Washington. It does not come from Washington. Washington is a place where too often you hear the words, "we can't." What we should be hearing is how and when. We need to have courage and determination in this moment. We need to stay connected to the eternal force for good, which fuels us all. Robin Wall Kimmerer, member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation, who wrote the brilliant Braiding Sweetgrass, told us what to do. She said, "I want to stand by the river in my finest dress. I want to sing strong and hard and stomp my feet with 100 others so that the waters hum with our happiness. I want to dance for the renewal of the world." Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today and for being here to educate and to advocate and organize for your communities. Miigwech Padamayage.
Again, let's thank Senator Smith for joining us today and her wonderful remarks. Thank you for those remarks, Senator, and your persistent dedication to Indian country. As you heard from her speech, she is not only an ally, but a friend of Indian country. Our Minnesota sister tribes have known this much longer than we have, but we appreciate that they shared Senator Smith with us. She knows that tribal sovereignty is not a partisan issue, but a principle enshrined in our federal system outlined in the U.S. Constitution. Her work across party lines throughout her time in the Senate to protect tribal sovereignty and fulfill the treaty and trust obligation is a testament to that fact. During her time in Congress, Senator Smith has proudly championed bills positively impacting public safety and justice, protecting victims of sexual violence, addressing behavioral health needs of our urban Indian brothers and sisters, investing in infrastructure and clean energy access for tribal homes, addressing the housing crisis so many of our families face, combating homelessness, improving services for our elders, enhancing tribal sovereignty, and enhancing tribal authority over our feeding programs, and so much more. She knows that tribal sovereignty is not a partisan issue, but a principle enshrined in our federal system outlined in the U.S. Constitution. Her work, I think, did we get off here? Thank you, all right. And it wasn't me. And while she, I'm getting old, so I thought I was starting to lose it there. Wow. Yeah, yeah. Jeez, it's already kicking in. And while she has fought for all of us, she never forgot where she came from. Just last year, she held a flag ceremony where she displayed all 11 tribal flags from her home state in the Senate Committee on Indian Affairs hearing room, and later in her Washington, D.C. and St. Paul offices, marking the first time that a member of her delegation has flown all Minnesota flags at once. She did this because she believes it's her duty to honor the trust and treaty obligations to those tribal nations. As one of the co-founders of the Native Farm Bill Coalition, along with the Shakopee Minnetonka Sioux community and Intertribal Agricultural Council, NCAI watched proudly when Senator Smith spoke on the Senate floor supporting efforts of our tribal governments, farmers, ranchers, and foresters. And if I may quote you, Senator, you said, "Tribal leaders often say, nothing about us without us. This value must guide us." Simply said, you got it. Senator Smith, without a doubt, your presence in the hallways of DC will be missed. But we as Native people also understand the importance of spending time with your family and your children and your grandchildren. We thank you for your service. We hope that you get the much needed time with your family. And if you ever want to come back, we'll welcome you back. Yes. Yes. And again, in 2024, NCI awarded you with the Congressional Leadership Award for dedication to Indian country. And today we present you with this with this blanket. And we thank you again for your service. A few photos here.
Ready? Bye, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.
In closing, I would like to thank all of our speakers today who helped give shape to the fundamental truths we continue to safeguard and advance throughout our work at NCAI. When we stand together, we amplify our voice, hold decision makers accountable, and ensure that the rights, cultures, and futures of our nations remain protected. Let us move forward with purpose, honoring those who came before us while building pathways of opportunity, safety, and prosperity for those who will follow. Thank you all for your leadership and your dedication. May we continue this work guided by strength, wisdom, and a shared commitment to self-determination and protecting our inherent tribal sovereignty. Gatega, Wiblahan, Sheno. Thank you very much.
This concludes the National Congress of American Indians 2026 State of Indian Nations. Please join us back in this room for our first General Assembly at 1 p.m. Thank you.